In witchcraft, timing, location, and the people involved were important. The spellcaster would call upon the power from external structures to inflict harm or bestow blessings on the target. Ding Fanqiu turned around to look at Lu Zhou and said, "Old householder, please take care of yourself." Then he turned his attention to little Yuaner and said, "Little girl, if you're afraid, you can stay closer to me." Little Yuana hugged Lu Zhou's arm and said, "I'm not afraid. Let's go." They walked around the trap and found themselves looking at the huge warehouse. It was impossible for the doors of the warehouse to stop a bunch of cultivators from entering. With a slight movement of the hand, the lock was broken. The instant the warehouse's doors opened, Lu Zhou frowned. This warehouse was dozens of meters long. Rows of boxes were arranged neatly inside the warehouse. They were stacked on top of each other as well. On the other side, there was a mountain of bones. From the looks of the exposed bones, there were many that were different from the ones they had seen in the crumbling courtyard. Many of them were just ordinary bones. The fish dragon village had been destroyed. There were 354 villagers living in the village back then. Even if all their corpses were here, there should not be so many of them. Moreover, they had been fishing out corpses in the last decade, and they were still going strong to this day. Taking into account the remains that had been washed away by the current, just how many people had died in the river? There were certainly other people as well, apart from the bays. Ding Fanqiu's expression was indifferent. It was as though he was used to seeing dead people. When he entered the warehouse, he merely raised his hand slightly to cover his mouth and nose. He ordered his disciples search. Understood. The 3 disciples went to work and checked the contents of the boxes. Lu Zhou felt even more suspicious when he saw this. What are they looking for? However, before Lu Zhou could ask about it, Ding Fanqiu suddenly said, "These are the bones of the other tribes." Other tribes. There is no place for the other tribes on Great Yan's lands. Over millennia, after Great Yan had conquered the lands, there have always been other tribes wanting to cause a disturbance. Measure Heaven River is fated to be drenched in blood. Ding Fanqiu said calmly. Lu Zhou asked, "These are all the remains of the other tribes?" Ding Fanqiu glanced at Lu Zhou and laughed mockingly. He replied, "Well, that's what the palace says." Little Yuaner poked her head out and asked, "What are you guys looking for?" "A bone, an extremely special bone," Ding Fanqiu replied. "What special bone?" Little Yuaner's curiosity was piqued. Ding Fanqiu did not answer her question directly. Instead, he said, "Little girl, if you become my disciple, I'll teach you everything that I know." Little Yuaner frowned slightly. She glared at Ding Fanqiu. "You? There are many who wish to join the Evil Sky Pavilion, and yet they don't have a chance. You should think about this carefully. All of my 9 disciples are experts whose names inspire awe everywhere they go." Not her. Little Yuaner pointed at the girl who was searching the boxes. The female cultivator was young, and she had a baby face. Ding Fanqiu was speechless, unable to retort. It seemed like Ding Fanqiu was revealing his foxtail. Lu Zhou was not surprised. Instead, he said, "I'm afraid you won't be able to teach her." Ding Fanqiu was clearly displeased by Lu Zhou's words. His hands remained on his back as he said, "There's no one under the heavens whom I can't teach." Lu Zhou did not want to waste his energy bickering with Ding Fanqiu. The reason he came here was to investigate the truth behind the Fish Dragon Village incident. I'll let him continue his act and impersonate me for the time being. After all, he still has some value. With that being said, Lu Zhou was still puzzled. How did Ding Fanqiu and his 3 disciples manage to form a connection with this place? It seemed like they had been doing this for a long time. What was Ding Fanqiu's objective? Who was backing Ding Fanqiu? After searching for some time, Ding Fanqiu's 3 disciples returned. The warehouse was in a complete mess now. Most of the boxes were overturned. The environment was bad. The stench of rotting flesh permeated the air. The girl said, "Master, we didn't find anything." The other 2 disciples shook their heads as well. Ding Fanqiu frowned slightly. He asked calmly, "Is there another warehouse?" The 3 disciples shook their heads again. This warehouse was large enough that there was still some space left even with all the boxes in here. Zhou looked up at the sun and noticed that it was already setting. At the same time, he glanced at the mission list on the system dashboard. When they were about to leave, they heard the sound of shuffling footsteps from outside. Moreover, the hurried footsteps indicated that there were more than one person. An ambush! Ding Fanqiu did not even look at the newcomers when he said coldly, "Kill them." Understood. The 3 disciples shot out of the warehouse and went on a killing spree. The newcomers were a group of soldiers. They were no match for cultivators. At this moment, Zhou remembered that Mingshi Yin had encountered a witchcraft trap when he was here previously. Surely a place this important would have better security? "I'm curious," Zhou said suddenly. What's the special bone you mentioned earlier?" Zhou asked. With his hands on his back, Ding Fanqiu replied, "Old householder, I'll remind you again. The more you know, the more dangerous it will be. At my age, life and death matter not." Zhou stroked his beard indifferently. He was not lying. Before he had transmigrated, he had already died once. Moreover, this was nothing compared to when the 10 elites laid siege on Golden Court Mountain. Very well. Ding Fanqiu shook his head. The sounds of fighting intensified. The number of people increased as well. Shortly after, groups of cultivators began showing up as well. It seemed like they had rushed here after receiving news about what happened. The number of cultivators continued to grow. A projected voice rang in the jetty at this moment. "You've walked into a trap. Death to the intruders." Although the voice was not loud, everyone heard it clearly. It seemed like things were getting more and more complicated. Zhou was not worried about this. If he wanted to leave, these people would not be able to stop him. Ding Fanqiu glanced at Zhou before he walked out. Outside the warehouse, soldiers were gathered in ranks on the shore beside the jetty. They wielded spears and blocked the path. Many cultivators hovered in the air above the soldiers. The 3 disciples returned to Ding Fanqiu's side after killing the soldiers at the warehouse's door. "We're surrounded. It's a trap." Ding Fanqiu calmly stood with his hands on his back. He did not seem to be affected by this news. He was an elite in the nascent divinity tribulation realm after all. There was no need for him to feel afraid. No number of soldiers could stop a nascent divinity tribulation realm cultivator from leaving through the air. Ding Fanqiu looked at the cultivators hovering above the soldiers. Since condensing realm, Brahmin Sea realm, and a few in the divine court realm. With these numbers, they want to stop me? Little girl, don't blink. Although Ding Fanqiu did not turn around, it was clear he was speaking to Liu Yuan. Zhou continued stroking his beard as though all these had nothing to do with him. At the same time, an imposing aura surged out from Ding Fanqiu's body. With a single step, he was out of the warehouse. BZZ, a 50 feet tall avatar towered above the others in the air. The avatar was faint blue in color. It looked extremely terrifying. It was surrounded by energy. The golden lotus under it unfurled its leaves, revealing 4 leaves. The soldiers and cultivators near the jetty saw this, and their expressions changed greatly as they took several steps back. However, they did not run away. They only cautiously put some distance between them and the avatar. Liu Yuan muttered disdainfully, "Only 4 leaves." Ding Fanqiu's female disciple rolled her eyes and said, "What do you know? Our master's strength is peerless. He's conserving his strength. 4 leaves are enough to deal with these people. A divine court realm cultivator's avatar can reach 10 worlds at most. With the 100 tribulations in sight, everyone here will have to prostrate themselves." At this moment, waves and waves of energy rolled off Ding Fanqiu's 4-leaf avatar. Rumble, rumble, rumble. The buildings near the jetty shook and rattled. The soldiers retreated further. The cultivators raised their guards. One of the cultivators shouted, "Everyone, stay calm. Let's retreat slowly. News from the palace states that this person isn't the real Ji Tiandao. A grand witchcraft formation has been laid down here yesterday. Let's head back to the grand formation. When the elites from the palace arrive, these criminals will be taken care of in one fell swoop. No matter who it is, Death to the intruders! Death to the intruders! Death to the intruders! The soldiers began chanting loudly. The soldiers were emboldened by the cultivator's motivational words, and they stood their ground firmly. Lu, Zhou, and little Yuan had arrived at the entrance of the warehouse at this moment. They were slightly taken aback when they saw several thousands of soldiers and several hundreds of cultivators before them. It was clear that everything was a trap. Lu, Zhou said calmly, "This is a trap." It seemed like this had been planned for the start. Since a trap had been laid out, it was only natural that they could not find what they wanted in the warehouse. That thing had to be hidden, or it was still somewhere on the riverbed. Little Yuan asked in a soft voice, "What do we do now? Do we charge through their ranks?" "There's no need for that." Lu Zhou stroked his beard and said, "Since that person likes being in the spotlight, let him do it." Little Yuan pouted and said, "A four-leaf avatar? This won't be interesting at all." She was used to a grander display of strength after all. It was only natural that she disdained an avatar this level. It was similar to how a person who was used to riding legendary mounts would feel if they were offered a low-grade mount. How could they not feel disdainful? However, for the other cultivators, a four-leaf golden lotus avatar could be considered an elite among elites. The cultivators who were hovering in the air gulped. They were wary of the avatar's intimidating power. No one dared make a move against a nascent divinity tribulation realm elite at this moment. Meanwhile, Ding Fanchio's three disciples had expressions of admiration on their faces. The female disciple glanced at little Yuan and said mockingly, "Little girl, don't be arrogant just because you had a stroke of luck and managed to defeat me earlier. With your strength, you won't even be able to make a single move against my master." Little Yuan snorted. "Loser. You." The female disciple wanted to retort. However, now was not the time to bicker. She had no choice but to let the matter go for now. Moreover, if they fought, there was no doubt she would be in a disadvantageous position. After all, her master was not in a position to protect his disciples now. The energy swirling around the four-leaf avatar glowed faintly, forming energy seals. Then they shot out. Lu Zhou remarked offhandedly, "Taoist Madras." He did not expect Ding Fanchio would use Taoist Madras. Taoist Madras were different from Zen sex Madras. Zen sex Madras relied on the golden body support and the cultivator's own primal chi. The two were then combined to form energy that was the fierce Buddhist power. On the other hand, Taoist Madras mainly manipulated the primal chi in the area, so it gave one better range. Regardless, both Madras were connected. Their differences were not as distinct as one might imagine. The densely packed Madras shot toward the soldiers and cultivators. Pooh! 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 The soldiers were sent flying by the Madras. Some of the cultivators turned to flee when they saw things were not in their favor. Retreat! Don't fight him. Wear him down. Prepare the witchcraft formation. Many cultivators stood far away. Their cultivation bases were barely enough to protect them from the avatar's intimidating aura. They had no additional strength to fight back. Ding Fanchio controlled his Madras like a heavenly maiden scattering blossoms. In just a blink of an eye, he took out several hundred soldiers. It was as though a flood had just washed over the area. The sound of people screaming rang in the air. The remaining soldiers retreated further away. Ding Fanchio said loudly, "Who dares to stop me from leaving?" This was not his first time here. He knew there were many witchcraft traps here. If this fight dragged out and the elites from the palace arrived, he would not be able to escape. Ding Fanchio's deep voice resounded in all directions. His voice could be clearly heard in every corner of the place. The houses, buildings, and fishing boats shook from the sound wave of his voice. The soldiers retreated again. "Get back! Everyone get back!" Whoosh! 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 The soldiers retreated swiftly. It was better for them to retreat than to throw away their lives in vain. Their mission was to protect the witchcraft traps and wait for the elites from the palace to arrive. Ding Fanchio's expression darkened. He tapped the ground with the tip of his toes and launched himself into the air. His 50 feet avatar kept him hovering in place. The reason why nascent Divinity Tribulation Realm cultivators were so terrifying was due to the 100 Tribulation Insight Avatar. The higher the avatar rose, the wider its intimidation aura would spread. When Ding Fanqiu leaped into the air, the energy around his avatar spread in all directions with overwhelming force. Be-zizzity, be-zizzity. Madras flew out like flower petals being scattered. Lu Zhou stroked his beard and nodded slightly. He's slightly accomplished in Madras. This is a slight accomplishment. The supreme purity jade slip was all little Yuan knew. She was not familiar with the cultivation methods of other sects. Lu Zhou spoke slowly. Taoist Madras mainly manipulate the primal qi in their surroundings, condensing qi into energy. For a great cultivator, even an avatar can be converted into energy. Zen Madras are mainly created by the cultivator himself. Usually they're in the form of palm prints. So, which one's more powerful? The Taoist Madras or the Zen Madras? Little Yuaner asked curiously. Lu Zhou nodded in approval. Little Yuaner's interested to learn more. This is a good thing. She'll surely become a great person in the future if I can groom her well. Each has its own advantages. It's impossible to compare them, Lu Zhou said. Little Yuaner nodded. Ding. Teach CI Yuaner. Reward 100 merit points. When Ding Fanqiu's 3 disciples who were standing at the side heard Lu Zhou's words, they were slightly taken aback. You're quite knowledgeable, old mister. Indeed, our master is using Taoist Madras. The female disciple looked at the Madras that covered the sky reverently. However, Taoist Madras have hand seals as well. There are 12 Taoist Madras in total. The more profound one's cultivation base is, the more powerful the hand seals will be. It won't lose to Zen Madras. Lu Zhou did not deign to look at the female cultivator, a young junior who's still wet behind the ears, but is too proud to ask for guidance. She can view the sky from the bottom of the well forever. At the same time, Ding Fanqiu's Madras struck the soldiers and cultivators in the air who were not fast enough to move out of the way like killer butterflies. He sent all of them flying. Those with cultivation bases lower than the sense, condensing realm spat out blood and died on the spot. The Brahmin Sea realm cultivators dropped to the ground and seemed to be in excruciating pain. Even the Divine Court realm cultivators had to descend from the air to repel the Madras by using their primal qi. Ding Fanqiu called out, Elephant King, with a wave of his hand. Loud thuds reverberated through the surroundings. From a forest, Elephant King came charging out. Although its speed was not fast, it trampled the enemies like a tank. Many of the soldiers could not dodge in time and died on the spot. Some of them were impaled by Elephant King's tusks and were tossed aside. Let's go, Ding Fanqiu said after he turned around. The soldiers and cultivators did not dare to go near the avatar. They could only look on helplessly. Little girl, come to my side. Ding Fanqiu descended slowly along with his avatar. Boom! The instant Ding Fanqiu landed, the ground shook. This served as a powerful intimidation, further discouraging the soldiers and cultivators from attacking them.